in his copyright attempt of the phrase "you're fired." He wasn't able to copyright that. I think it depends on how they approach the copyright on that, from what I understand from my friend. Of course, he's very knowledgeable on that, but he works in the garment district, like with the Hilton family and things of that nature. And it's kind of crazy. But I really think about the price. Again, I guess because I'm on not a really big budget, I worry about the price that my internet may cost me in the future. If I want to use Netflix, and will Netflix even be in business? Because do any of you guys use Netflix?
I do, yeah. I use Netflix and Hulu Plus.
Now, have you noticed when watching Netflix, a movie on that, suddenly it'll be hard to load up? Have you noticed that there's like a slower mode for some movies?
Well, I know that they have lower quality versions available for streams that are not as high end as, say, like I said earlier, I had the 150 megabit per second connection, which allows for 1080p streaming. But other friends of mine are still on DSL, but yet they're still able to view Netflix. That's more along the lines of a courtesy to users, because they understand that not all internet is created equally.
That's true. I do understand that. But I have thought to myself in learning all this that maybe Netflix was trying out, the slow lane, the fast lane that I was referring to. Were my examples good examples to explain net neutrality, or were they not?
Essentially, when it comes to that, one of the things that I think you were trying to get at was the fact that they were attempting to throttle internet connections, which means that they'll siphon it off. But as far as paying to be in a higher lane, I don't necessarily think that's going to come to fruition. What I do understand is that if they catch you violating terms of service, that they will impede restrictions on you in order to make your ability to violate their terms of service more difficult for you.
I think so. I think that's probably correct. I'm still learning so much about this. I had some other notes here. Let me pull this over. I actually wrote down my notes, my thoughts, because my mind was going so bad. And I think getting rid of the net neutrality is bad for consumers, the economy, for the everyman. And I think it's a risk to the internet as we know it. I think... I don't know. It's just Time Warner concerns me. They currently provide bandwidth to 100 million Americans. I mean, that's a lot of people.
Yep.
I really want to look into. Go ahead.
That's a third of the nation right there.
Right.
Yeah. And Comcast is what? How many?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked up the number on that one, but I don't think these companies should be able to control who gets to innovate, communicate, or start a business on the internet. I mean, they really will be able to control the content in a way that's never been controlled before.
Well,
I think... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, the problem is just like the telephone companies, the so-called, cell phone companies. I mean, if you can count with your fingers how many companies actually exist, and most people are tied into like maybe the common 3-4 companies. At some places there's only 2 providers. When you're dealing with the cable, it's almost like if you're dealing with on the cable aspect, I'm talking about the physical fiber optic, you might have just one provider for that. But then you want to deal with a DSL or satellite, they have somebody for that avenue. So it's like, but then there's no competition to that. So if you're getting cable internet, there's no competition to the cable. The only thing there is the competition is the satellite. But there's no competition. There's not more than one provider of satellite. There's not more than one provider of cable in that city. It might be 1 or 2, different companies maybe. But what I'm saying is that in your choices are very limited. And like I said, you can count with your hands how many cable company providers. Are we talking about whether it's internet, or you talking about television, getting cable through cable TV or satellite television. You know what I'm saying? So, again, you very limited. And then the thing is now that the same people that own the TV, you know, communication cable, run the internet, run the telephone. You know, so they
interesting that you say that.
You know, huh?
I'm saying it's interesting that you say that. If you think about it, the same thing kind of applies for our power companies as well. I mean, you don't really have much of a choice when you move to an area. You're kind of limited to either one, maybe two in some places. Different companies that will provide you certain utilities like power and water.
The essential water
you're
and
exactly right.
Telephone. The internet needs to be included.
That's right. You know, but look, you know what's crazy is that he just hit it right on the head. You know, electricity. I mean, how many energy companies do you have in one city? You only have really one electrical company running it because it's only one line that's being run. It's not like they have multiple lines. So I mean, it is you limited. You're limited. Look at the iPhone, for instance. You can only get it through one phone provider. Now they open it to another one. You know, you had to do something special to it in order for you to what they call jailbreak to get access to other phone providers, so you can get other services. But look at how they monopolize that situation. Excuse me.
Well, I do need to say that I put something in the chat room.
It
is from Senator Al Franken. He's from Minnesota, and it's a Save the Internet or Save Net Neutrality. This was posted 20 hours ago. And he wants people to sign in on this to make it clear that we support net neutrality. If you see that link in the chat room, it's Al Franken, ALFRANKEN.com for this. I need people to let their representatives and their senators know that they care about net neutrality and find out what their perspective, their view is on it. Are they already bought out by the big companies? And can we get them back? And Al Franken, he's the only senator that's really carrying the torch for net neutrality. Have you guys heard of his viewpoints before?
I've heard very little from him, but what I have heard is he's incredibly infuriated about the current ruling that took place on the 14th of January this year.
Correct.
And he was all up in arms.
Yes.
But
he was upset in 2011 too.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. When it initially began.
I am impressed that he's actually trying his damnedest to draw attention to this. If the more people that were more informed about it, not just in the sense that it's happening, but through education about what it means and what it will eventually mean for the average person, I think that will definitely help the odds of getting something like this signed and definitely get this rolling in the courts again.
Well, speaking about him, I'm going to read his statement he made after the appeals court struck down the Federal Communications Commission rules for net neutrality. And that was January 14th is when that happened. This is his quote. Anyone who goes online to shop, promote their business, or simply to connect with the world should be worried about today's opinion, said Franklin. I've been fighting to make sure that the Internet is a level playing field for everyone. The website of a Minnesota small business should load as quickly as the website of a large corporation. Going on, he said, getting rid of net neutrality is bad for consumers and the economy, plain and simple. It's a real risk to the Internet as we know it. Net neutrality is the common sense idea that big corporations like Verizon, Comcast, and Time Warner shouldn't control who gets to innovate, communicate, or start a business on the Internet. The FCC needs to respond immediately in a way that keeps the Internet open to all of us, not just big corporate interests. And this is a special issue for Senator Franken. I may be mispronouncing his name, and I apologize if I am. Now, he calls the Internet the public square of the 21st century, like back in the 1770s, they had a public square where there was a town crier, and they would say the business of the day, and people would stand up on boxes and say their thoughts. I think the internet truly is the town square, and it's going to change. So, what do you guys think of the words of Senator Franken?
I think that what you were saying about the internet being the town square is definitely true. If you remember back in the days of when the Boston bombing first took place, the fact that people on Reddit and Twitter were able to cover it at breakneck speed to the point that the major mainstream media was actually listening into both of those platforms to get their information from. When they saw that the internet had as much power as it did, I think that's what kind of set in motion a lot of the things that were, to help limit what it is that we, the people, can do with the internet.
Right. Because any government worth its merit is afraid of its people. Like in France, there's a common saying that the government should be afraid of its people. And I think one way to control our government, our country, is to limit the communication. And I see this happening, and it frightens me. It makes me feel sick and dirty that I live in a country that would allow it, and the people aren't saying anything. So I'm inviting people to discuss net neutrality. I think it means more than being able to download your torrent. I think it's a lot greater than that, especially for the mom and pop stores on Main Street, USA. It matters. That's your uncle. That's your niece starting a startup company, and she's not going to be able to promote it the way she was able to in 2014. Those things do matter. Our intellectual property, our thoughts, our movements. I mean, you saw what was done with the Arab Spring, and that was because of the internet. Already, I want to recommend that people listen to my show from last night. I had someone on there. I cannot say his name. We refer to him as Pluto, and he is very much in the know, and I learned a great deal through listening to him, and I had to stop him from time to time just to ask for definitions of terms that I wasn't familiar with, and I really want to recommend that people do that. Is this something that's concerning people that are, I don't want to say hacker or troll, but maybe the underground culture? Maybe that's a better word for it.
I know it's definitely being talked about. Revolution Radio recently covered net neutrality, I want to say last Wednesday. My girlfriend actually spoke on that show to talk about it. And essentially, I mean, people from, all walks of life, be it activists or trolls or hackers or any of that nature, I mean, they're all chiming in on their opinions on the matter because it affects us all. I mean, despite our different backgrounds and the fact that we're consistently butting heads with each other, this is a huge ordeal.
Yes, I believe it to be true. And, for music, for indie groups that are trying to get their music out there, that are dropping their albums for people to hear, this is a big blow to them. I mean, this is Titanic. This is the Titanic going down. We thought this would never happen. We thought the internet, was the Titanic. It'll never go down. And I see it morphing into that, more of a long-term
They never
thing.
wanted it to go public from the first time, from the beginning.
That's true. Matter of fact, the guy from last night was talking about the beginnings of the internet, that it was only meant to be, was it Vox? Not Vox. It was, you remember the term?
The government had access for years.
I know what it was in the beginning, and there was no restrictions. And, oh, my goodness. I remember first learning about the internet when I was in somebody's lab, and they showed me this thing on the computer, and I was just fascinated. And this is in the 80s, and it was just crazy. But I'm trying to figure out, where do we go from here? I think protecting net neutrality, making it a law, making it essential to where it's covered and protected, like the phones are and electricity. They have some federal protection. Maybe we need that for the internet. Vince in the Bay? What's the comment about the Vince in the Bay?
I guess Rebel was just wanting to know if